Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy Sunday to all of you. Today I woke up with this idea. Look into Jeffrey Epstein and Chabad Lubavitch. You might be wondering, is it normal? No, it's not normal to wake up with ideas like this. But there are two things that I want to express before we start this video. I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of inspirations, ideas, insights, or let's say downloads throughout my life, I have received really, really early in the morning. There is this moment before you fully awaken, fully wake up, and you're still kind of in a state of sleep. And ideally around you is quiet, and you receive, very often I do, some form of communication. I believe this is how God or your higher self, is communicating with us. That is from my personal experience. So today I woke up with that idea, that thought, to look into Epstein and Chabad Lubavitch. And it took me on another journey. As you know, all of them are connected, and they are lying to us in such an extent that if you just don't do your own research, you actually will believe that there is a side that is good, a side that is bad. But you know, at the end of the day, Chabad Lubavitch connects a lot of them, most of them. So I will present to you today if there are any connections with Jeffrey Epstein, or maybe Ghislaine Maxwell, or maybe her father, Robert Maxwell, who is no longer alive, and Chabad Lubavitch, and what Howard Lutnik has to do with Epstein and Chabad Lubavitch as well. Also, a very interesting story that we will, as we follow through this plot that thickens a lot, is what was happening with the Jewish kids that were ill because of the Chernobyl explosion. You remember that tragedy with Chernobyl? I remember it. There was a really little girl when that took place in Russia. So we're going to look into it. What is the connection with Maxwell and Chabad Lubavitch as far as the kids from Chernobyl go? But before we end the video, I want to say a few things about Brigitte Bardot, just to change the vibe of the topics today and acknowledge her. And before we start, as always, I want to say huge thank you to all of you who have donated on PayPal, on my PayPal, who are supporting me. I really appreciate your support. I want you to know. To Miroslav, John, Armen, and Patricia again, and also to Maurice. Thank you so much to all of you for your kindness, your generosity, and for your support. And to those of you who are ordering my book, Matilda's and Odo's Adventures, book number 1. This is book for children, written by me, illustrated by great illustrator from Bulgaria, actually, originally from Bulgaria, Diana Popova. You can find the link down below in the description box, and you can make a payment on PayPal. That's how you order it. And then I contact you about the address to mail it to. So where do we start? Let's just look into exactly the direction I went in today. So my first question was about Jeffrey Epstein, because really it's all connected, guys, and Chabad Lubavitch. So first question I asked, was he Jewish, which is obvious, right? So I asked about him being Jewish, and it said that he was born on January 20th, 1953 in Brooklyn, New York, to Jewish parents, Pauline Nee Stolowski and Seymour George Epstein. Both of his parents were the children of Jewish immigrants. Now, here is interesting part. His upbringing. He was raised in Seagate, that is a predominantly Jewish middle-class gated community in Brooklyn. His family lived across from the Nesses Israel Synagogue. I don't know if you say Nesses or Nises Israel Synagogue, which is currently affiliated with the Chabad Lubavitch movement. So as far as his connections with Chabad Lubavitch, it looks like, well, it says he didn't really have any, however, or, he was not deeply involved in that movement. That's what I cannot find at this point, but I'm sure ultimately we will. However, Ghislaine Maxwell has connection to the Chabad Lubavitch movement through a non-profit organization called Reaching Out, which is affiliated with Chabad and provides services to Jewish prisoners, including her. So let's read this briefly, because, as I said, the plot thickens. Connection details. Prisoner support group. Maxwell is receiving services from Reaching Out, an American civil rights organization for Jewish prisoners, which is run by followers of the Lubavitch Rebbe. So that, again, those of you who are new to my channel, I will advise you to go back, revisit my older videos, especially from the last 2 months, where you will find the explanation, the connections, and how that Chabad Lubavitch movement looks like. So just in a nutshell, to break it down, Trump, Zelensky, Putin, a lot of leaders, including even, I think, Orban, they have connections with this movement, and a lot of people in current Trump administration as well. Actually, Dmitry Medvedev as well, I believe. There are deep connections with this movement. So let's continue here. Access to resources through this affiliation, and by identifying as Jewish in prison, she is entitled to specific religious accommodation under US law, such as kosher food, time off for Shabbat and Jewish holidays, and access to a rabbi. Family background, and we will go into her father after that. Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was from an Orthodox Jewish family and was buried in Jerusalem, which made her eligible for these services, even though she was reportedly raised Anglican and did not publicly identify as Jewish previously. Chabad's mission. The Chabad movement has several affiliated organizations, such as the Aleph Institute, that extensively serve Jewish prisoners across the United States as part of their mission to connect as many Jews as possible to their religion. All right, so this is as far as she goes. However, her father, let's look into him, guys, because here we go, Chabad Lubavitch again. Robert Maxwell. And in the future, we're gonna dive deeper into him. Let's read first, and then we look into pictures. British media tycoon Robert Maxwell, so this is Ghislaine Maxwell father. You see 1923, 1999, he died on a yacht, allegedly to heart attack, and I think she said he was killed. It's not the point of this video. We will focus on his connection with Chabad Lubavitch. He had several significant interactions with the Chabad Lubavitch movement, primarily focused on humanitarian aid and diplomatic efforts during the final years of his life. So here is one of those. Humanitarian collaboration, Chernobyl children. Maxwell played a critical role in one of Chabad's most prominent humanitarian missions, the Chabad Children of Chernobyl project. What was it? Founding and logistics in 1990, Maxwell provided his personal aircraft and financial support to help airlift 226 Jewish children from the contaminated Chernobyl region region to Israel. I will read an article about it and then I will give you my comments. Direct intervention. When Soviet authorities initially blocked the immigration of these children, Maxwell intervened personally to resolve logistical snags and provide transport after other commercial options became unavailable. And visits to Kfar Chabad. He visited the religious settlement of Kfar Chabad to Israel to meet the children he helped rescue. Okay, so now we're gonna look into picture and then we're gonna read an article about what happened to those children that he rescued from Chernobyl. Let me find the images. Here they are. So you can see here is her father with Chabad Lubavitch people. Here is another picture. He was Jewish, we all know it. So now, what is the story with those children from Chernobyl that were ill? Here we go, guys. Jewish Telegraphic Agency, established, look how significant, from 1917, huh? What happened in Russia? Chabad airlifts Soviet Jewish kids thought to be ill from Chernobyl. A group of 196 Jewish children from the Chernobyl area in the Soviet Union, who may be suffering from radiation sickness, landed at Ben Gurion Airport on Friday after a delay of 60 hours because of an error by Romanian airline officials. The youngsters are the vanguard of 3,000 who are being brought to Israel by the Chabad Lubavitch movement on a humanitarian mission. I give you comments after I read all of this. Chabad, aided by its affiliate organization Lishkas Ezras Achim, worked 6 months on the project called Children of Chernobyl. The children, some of whom are known to be aligning as a result of the 1986 nuclear disaster, will be checked for medical problems at a special clinic at Kfar Chabad. Currently, accompanied by parents, they will live at Kfar Chabad, a religious township about 15 miles southeast of Tel Aviv. Their arrival was delayed initially because of an error made by Tarom, the Romanian airline from which Chabad chartered 2 planes to pick up the children at Minsk in the Soviet Union. All necessary authorizations had been obtained and they were ready to be flown to London, where a chartered El Al plane was waiting to take them to Israel. The Tarom officials requested landing rights from the Soviets for the purpose of emigration rather than for humanitarian or medical reasons. Soviet authorities declined permission. Fresh crew brought in. Once that snag was unraveled, the El Al jet was no longer available. A British Airways jet was substituted but had to be sent to Kuwait to bring home British subjects after the Iraqi invasion. At that point, British press magnate Robert Maxwell intervened, providing his private plane, which brought fresh Tarom crews to London. The Tarom plane flew to Israel with the children, who had waited with their families 60 hours at the Minsk airport, about 600 people all told. During that period, a 13-year-old girl became seriously ill and was advised to go to the hospital. She refused, fearing she might miss the flight to Israel, and was treated by a medical team brought in by Chabad. Chabad also provided food, clothes, and blankets at the airport. The children, ages 6 to 15, are virtually all from secular Jewish homes in the Ukrainian cities of Gomel and Mozyr, within a 100-mile radius of Chernobyl. Soviet medical treatment was reportedly limited to people living within a 30-mile radius of Chernobyl. The children's parents were anxious to remove the children from the area, where soil and water was dangerously irradiated, say irradiated, and the food too contained to safely eat. Of the initial group of 196, 5 children are known to be suffering from leukemia. The medical conditions of the others is unknown. So, I want to give you a few thoughts about it. I'm not going to read this entire article. So what do you think it was? Do you think it was a human trafficking? Or do you think it was genuine help to those 3,000, it looks like, but 196, but 3,000 in total, right? From Ukraine regions, from all the places from Ukraine regions, right? Children. And who was involved in it? Chabad Lubavitch was helping. So let me know, am I exaggerating here? Am I overreacting here? Or I'm not? Keep in mind, this is the father of Ghislaine, Maxwell. He landed them his own plane. So why this all is connected? Well, Howard Lutnik, who is the Secretary of Commerce under current Trump's administration, who you can see next to Trump most of the time, especially in those times when they celebrate Hanukkah or when Trump is going to visit the grave of the Rebbe, who was the leader, Rebbe Schneerson, the leader of Chabad Lubavitch movement. I've showed you the videos many times, okay? So Howard Lutnik is really, really faithful believer in Chabad Lubavitch. Also, Howard Lutnik, I don't know if he still has that home, but he used to own a house right next to Jeffrey Epstein. And I'm going to show you now how they are presenting things to us as if they are on different sides, but all of this is so connected because of Chabad Lubavitch. So let's go to Lutnik now, just to shift the gears on him for a moment and the Epstein story. First, let's remind ourselves again about Lutnik. So here is his dedication. Howard Lutnik is a prominent supporter of Chabad Lubavitch and a follower of the late Lubavitcher Rebbe. So the same Rebbe that Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner worship, okay? So this is all connected. And what's the other guy name? Steve Witkoff, okay? So the same. The Rebbe Menahem Mendel Schneerson. This is the one who told Netanyahu that Netanyahu has a certain role, very important role. And that's why this great new Israel project is progressing forward. So anyway, he's often accompanying President Trump to the Rebbe's grave, the name of it is Ohel, to show solidarity with Israel and Jewish causes, playing a key role in bridging American politics with Orthodox Jewish interests, particularly within the Trump orbit. Sometimes when you look at this, you wonder, is he a handler of Trump? Because he's extremely close all the time, almost like keeping hand on the pulse and checking if everything is going according to the plan. Chabad affiliations. Lutnik is a devout member of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, which reverse Rabbi Schneerson as a spiritual leader and for some time the Jewish Messiah. Political influence. As a close associate and fundraiser for Trump, Lutnik helped secure Jewish support and align Trump's Middle East policies with Chabad Israeli interests, similar to Sheldon Adelson role. So, you know, Sheldon Adelson, that billionaire who's no longer alive from Vegas, and his wife who donated $250 million to latest Trump's campaign, right? And he visits, frequently joins Trump at the Rebbe's burial site in Queens, New York, a significant pilgrimage site for Chabad followers, reinforcing his commitment to Israel and Jewish causes. His support for Israel focuses groups like Birthright, United Hatzhal, and his alignment with Chabad's emphasis on Jewish identity and support for Israel and central to his public persona. So now, let's go to an interview that he gave about his interaction with Jeffrey Epstein as they were neighbors. So let's take a listen to this. What is he going to tell us? How that neighbor treated him? How did it look like? Quite interesting story.
You have known Donald Trump for 30 years. You know everybody, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, Jeffrey Epstein was your neighbor. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about him, East 71st Street. He was your neighbor for 10 years. How well did you know him?
All right. So we are in number 11 and he lives in number 9.
Right.
So we renovate, we buy our house, and our house is pigeons and mice.
Right.
Okay. It was derelict.
Right.
So we rebuild our house. We move in 2005. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein is arrested in like 08, I think, or something like that.
Right.
So knock on the door. His assistant on like a Saturday says, Mr. Epstein, your neighbor would like to invite you over for coffee. So my wife and I go next door. We walk the 7 steps,
yes,
right, to the next house for coffee. We share a wall.
Right.
So it's in New York City. So he invites us in. We have coffee in this, and he says, do you want a tour? We said, great.
Interesting.
He's got a really big house.
Every room you went into?
He's got, well, I'll tell you. So his house is like super big, really wide. And so he gives me a tour in the living room, big living room. And then across from it is double doors. I assume it's the dining room.
Yeah.
And he opens the doors and there's a massage table in the middle of the room.
Ooh.
And candles all around and stuff. So I ask very insightful, cutting questions. I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often do you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me.
Ooh.
And he says, and the right kind of massage.
Ooh.
Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry, we have to go. And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. Really? So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross. Oh. And so I look back at it as a gift.
Yes.
He gave me a gift.
Yes.
Of avoid.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's my story. A one and absolutely done.
Right. So, I mean, that's an incredible story that you could pick up that he was a pervert.
It's gross. The guy's gross. Right. With my wife. He's gross. The guy's gross. This was not, the deep nuance of Howard Lutnik. This guy's gross.
Right. So how come Bill Gates and all these other people could hang around him and not see what you saw? Or did they see it and ignore it? Or
no, they participated.
Right.
That's what his MO was, get a massage, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever. Blackmailed people. That's how he had money. So
what happened to those videos? Why is there now such a dearth of information when, Donald Trump's people are running the FBI and the DOJ?
I assume way back when, They traded those videos in exchange for him getting that 18-month sentence, which allowed him to have visits and be out of jail. I mean, he's a serial sex offender. How could he get 18 months and be able to go to his office during the day and have visitors and stuff? It must have been a trade. So my assumption, I have no knowledge, but my assumption is there was a trade for the videos because there were people on those videos.
And have you talked to Donald Trump about this and shared your theory?
No, I mean, he knows the story.
Right.
But my story, that, I was one and done with the guy. He knows that story, but that's it.
He would have been interested in that story.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's a story. It's just a one and done. That guy. Ugh.
And did Trump feel the same way about him?
I don't speak to him about these kind of, these are just distractions.
Right.
The thing about the president is I'm doing the most important thing that I see. And then right after we do that, he does 10 other things that are as, if not more important, that are not my thing.
Right.
And you're like, wow. And he is great at it. And sometimes he lets me stay. So he lets me stay for the Joint Chiefs of Staff come in. Right. I'm like, this is like the coolest thing ever.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into this bizarre role, really. You're a billionaire. You've been an incredibly successful businessman. You were a Hillary Clinton supporter, a classic New York Democrat. And here you are, Commerce Secretary in a Republican administration. How did you get here?
Ten kij turystyczny może wyglądać zwyczajnie, ale w rzeczywistości może uratować ci życie w krytycznych momentach.
I have known Donald Trump for decades, and I supported his campaign, but Hillary Clinton was very supportive of us after 9/11.
Right.
And so I sat down with President Trump, then candidate Trump, and I told him that I just don't forget. So I supported in 2015. So I supported both because I told him I had to support her because she was helpful to me post 9/11. And I don't forget. Remember, she was the New York senator,
right?
And she helped get bills passed that helped New York, right? So, but then once, so I supported both candidates. But once Donald Trump got elected, I was all in with Donald Trump. And, he came over to my house. I had him to fundraisers. I did all sorts of things together with him. But again, I was still rebuilding my company post 9/11. So I really wasn't involved in the politics side. I was just being financially supportive. And that was really it. And then towards the end of his campaign, at the end of his presidency, when he's running again, then I went all in big. I raised a lot of money for him. I gave him a lot of money, and I was all in for Donald Trump. And then, the election was stolen from him, as we all know.
2020.
And I spent lots of time with him. We played golf together. We would hang out. And I always talked to him, oh, you're running again. And even when he was saying, I'm not running again, I'd say, oh, you're running again. You're running again. And
why did you think that he would?
Well, because of course he would, because the country needed him. Right. The country needed him. So now it's November 2023. He gives me a call. He says, will you help me? And this was not a normal conversation. He wasn't asking just for money. He was talking to me as his friend. And I said I would. And then I gave him a lot of money. I raised him a lot of money, probably $100 million.
Wow.
And then I went on the campaign trail with him. And I think the most important thing we did is we designed his tariff policy together. We talked it through. He taught me, I tell you what, he taught me everything about tariffs. We designed the tariff policy together. And we
did
talked
you
about his
believe in
economic
tariffs?
policy. I didn't really understand.
Okay, so now it goes into administrative side, him being the Secretary of Commerce, right? That's his position now in Trump's administration. But let me tell you a few things from my personal take on that. I believe he is positioned there to make sure that Chabad, Lubavitch, and the great New Israel project will be brought to fruition. So, in my opinion, make no mistake that this is not random and it just happened. I looking at him now, the more I know about Chabad Lubavitch movement, I don't trust this person at all. And we're going to go into his business history a little bit. But think about this, guys. So even if they say that Epstein personally himself was not involved in Chabad Lubavitch, but Ghislaine Maxwell now is receiving the support of that organization that is run by Chabad Lubavitch while she's in jail, as well as her father was deeply connected with Chabad Lubavitch. And how is that you have Lutnik, who lived right next to Epstein, and he's now telling this story? So he said that Epstein was disgusting and was, like he said, right? That he was gross. What about those Jews, those Chabad Lubavitch believers that came out like rats from underneath those tunnels in Brooklyn, New York, where is the headquarters of Chabad Lubavitch, and he's devoted believer? That was not gross? So you see the hypocrisy, and you see the lies, and you see how they are deceiving people. But he believes in that movement, and that organization, and that cult. Truly satanic, really. It is. And those believers, those rabbis, were coming like rats from underground. The mattresses were covered with blood. That was not gross. Why he's not addressing this, right? So like I said a few videos ago, when I came to this conclusion that maybe, perhaps, very much likely, those rabbis are the Mossad agents and those synagogues are the center of the operations. So does he work with the Mossad? What do you think? Let's take now jump to a short clip with him. He will be addressing the genocide, okay? You know where. And then we go into his business ventures. So first, let's take a listen, less than 1 minute. What is snake surroundings? Like, when you think about it, it's like all lies and snakes and deception and
And it is very, very clear that it stems from the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. See, each time when I was with him and a reporter asked a question, and it was about Gaza, about, the press is nasty, as you all know, and the press in America is really left and nasty. And they would say, genocide or some other nasty comment about Israel. 100% of the time, the President of the United States said, "You mean October 7th, right? When Hamas killed babies and raped women and chopped people up." And, he just would go on and he would just pulverize anybody who questioned him, because he is not afraid of moral clarity. He wears moral clarity clearly and distinctly as part of who he is as a person. And it is very, very clear that it stems.
So nothing happened in Gaza, according to him. Only on October 7th something happened, right? Moral clarity. So what is his business story? I just wanted to kind of I focused on him because he is always so close to Trump. All those Hanukkah celebrations, all of it lately, like everywhere is Lutnik, right? Lutnik is everywhere. And then you have the other two, Witkoff and Kushner, talking about money and flying to Russia, or meeting in Miami with Kirill Dmitriev, another persona from Russia. All shady freaking business. So what was his business like? Let's take a look.
Today on Forbes, the most hated guy on Wall Street, the unspoken story around Howard Lutnik. Trump's pick for Commerce Secretary. On the morning of July 27th, Cantor Fitzgerald's longtime CEO, Howard Lutnik, took the stage at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee, where thousands of crypto fanatics had gathered to listen to royalty from the MAGA universe, including Vivek Ramaswamy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and Donald Trump himself. During Lutnik's 20-minute talk, the burly, balding 63-year-old made an impassioned defense of Tether, a cryptocurrency attached to the US dollar, and announced the launch of an initial $2 billion financing business to provide leverage to Bitcoin investors. But before he began proselytizing, he retold a familiar story. On September 11th, 2001, he was dropping off his oldest son on his first day of kindergarten when a plane struck the World Trade Center, where Cantor Fitzgerald's headquarters sat on the 101st to 105th floors. All 658 of his employees in the building that morning were killed, including Lutnik's brother, Gary, his best friend, Doug, 28 sets of brothers, and 1 set of sisters. Describing the close-knit workplace, Lutnik recalled his hiring strategy, saying, quote, "We had an unusual model. We only wanted to work with people that we liked." Out of tragedy came purpose. Lutnik promised to give 25% of the firm's profits to families of the deceased for 5 years, eventually shelling out $180 million. 23 years later, Lutnik still sees himself as a model of patriotism and determination. Many others do, too. When Trump announced Lutnik's nomination as Commerce Secretary on Truth Social on Tuesday, he did not focus on his business acumen or trade policy knowledge. Instead, Trump mostly recounted the 9/11 events and described Lutnik as a, quote, "inspiration to the world," and, quote, "the embodiment of resilience in the face of unspeakable tragedy." It's a true and undoubtedly inspirational story. But Lutnik has a darker side, which emerges in court documents and conversations with people who have done business with him. For years, they say, he and his firm have been pulling money from people, clients, investors, and colleagues, making Lutnik, according to one former partner, quote, "the most hated guy on Wall Street." His multi-billion-dollar empire, which includes 2 publicly traded companies and a privately held investment bank, is a tangle of self-dealing, with record-keeping issues that date back decades and infighting that continues to the present day. Another former employee says, using an expletive, quote, "the whole firm is about effing people. It's about squeezing people." Lutnik runs his firm through a partnership, but there is no doubt who has the ultimate say. Now worth more than $1.5 billion, Lutnik pays himself like a king, cutting into partnership profits. A former partner says, quote, "he could do what he wanted." According to a lawsuit filed last year in federal court, Lutnik made employees take 10 to 20% of their pay in partnership units, which sounded nice but caused problems when the employees tried to get their money out. Agreements allegedly gave Lutnik sole authority to stiff former partners whom he believed violated broadly defined non-compete provisions. An estimated 40% did not end up with all their money after departing, according to the lawsuit, which says it was all part of a scheme to fool employees and enrich Lutnik. Another former colleague says, quote, "he only pays if he wants to pay you." Lutnik's companies have moved to dismiss the suit. Through a spokesperson, Lutnik declined to be interviewed for the story. He does have defenders who suggest some people just aren't tough enough to handle him or smart enough to read through the partnership agreements that one executive estimates run 700 pages. Even those who support Lutnik, however, aren't eager to share their thoughts on the record. A former colleague says, quote, "people are very scared of him. I witnessed this stuff firsthand. I witnessed the bullying. I witnessed the aggression." For full coverage, check out Dan Alexander's piece on Forbes.
So you might say that it's Forbes and it's just, fake news or whatever. But I believe there's always some truth in those reports, because I don't think Trump has really chosen him. I think he was chosen to be near Trump. And who decided? I think the rabbi who is designated for United States of America. That's how it looks like, in my opinion. it's all connected when you look into it deeper, even though on the surface it looks like they are probably from different groups, different sides. In my opinion, it's all connected. Let me know your thoughts, guys. What do you think about it? What is your opinion about the Secretary of Commerce? And also about the kids from Chernobyl that were allegedly rescued. I wonder if all of them were rescued or they were not. Interesting, huh? We're going to look into Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, and his connections with Russia in the future, especially with Gorbachev and a few others, because it looks like he was not just the Mossad agent, he was an agent from British MI6 or MI5, whatever the number, and then from KGB as well. So he was playing on all the sides at the same time. So how they are all connected? They are all connected. And today's video I want to end with completely different topic. And you know why? Because when I was growing up, one of my father's favorite actresses was Brigitte Bardot. And I will never forget that my father was telling me that she used to bring more money to France than the export of Citroën and Peugeot. I'm paraphrasing, but so I was looking into this, if it's really true, because she passed away today at age 91. And here is what I found. The claim that Brigitte Bardot brought more money to France than car sales is a popular, often exaggerated notion, reflecting her massive global impact on tourism, fashion, and culture in the 1950s and 60s, making Saint-Tropez and French style famous, which did generate huge economic benefits from tourism, bikini sales, potentially surpassing early Renault Citroën revenue for a time, but it's more about economic influence than direct export dollars, highlighting France's soft power. So today, or last night, I don't know exactly, she transitioned, and I have to tell you that is almost like, for me personally, it's as if certain era is dying, you know. She was truly an icon, and of course she was a sex symbol, one of the most famous actresses in the world. But besides that she was, you know, French and very feminine and beautiful woman, she was also an activist, and she loved animals very, very much. She was against abuse of animals, and it's an interesting story because even the way how she approached aging process, especially for someone so beautiful like she was aging with time, in my opinion, in a way that she was accepting the changes, the physical changes, and focusing on what was the most important for her in the time of her life. Fighting with cruelty, fighting with injustice. But yeah, I just wanted to say that because she was my father's one of the most favorite actresses, and some era is dying, guys. Certain people like her. This is the beautiful Brigitte. This is the beautiful Brigitte Bardot. This is not the awkward man, Brigitte Macron. What a contrast, huh? What a contrast. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching my video today. If you appreciate the content and have some comments about what I told you today, leave in the comments, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and if you choose to support my work, the best way is by ordering my book, Matilda's and Odo's Adventures. The link is down below the video. You can just make a payment on PayPal. You can also support me on PayPal, Patreon, or Locals. And if you have Instagram, make sure to follow me there. The link is down below as well. It's AniaK_44. And as always, you find the links to the videos and articles that I was sharing with you down below this video in the description box. And that's it for today, guys. Lots of love. And remember, we are the leading edge and we are saving humanity. And I see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.